Hello and welcome to Aliens Revealed Live. I'm your host, Dean Caparella, here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. From alien abductions to monster-infested ranches to Men in Black, near-death experiences, close encounter experiences and more, we speak to some of the most amazing people on the planet ready and willing to share their chilling stories with you. And they all come from the Aliens Revealed Live files here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. The Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind CE5 community has been picking up a huge head of steam during the last 5 years. The Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind experiences have been strongly touted by credible experts as the key to ultimate disclosure. Right now, the numbers of experiences is growing by the day, and while mainstream ufology has taken some time to get used to the idea that human-initiated contact experience is here to stay, the shift in momentum has become evident in the past year alone. The sheer number of people who are coming forward to relate their experiences is impressive. Dr. Stephen Greer has been one of the people at the forefront of the CE5 movement, which is the next level up from the non-consensual CE3 and CE4. Costa Macris and Hollis Polk have also been at the forefront of the rise in Close Encounter 5 experiencer numbers. Meanwhile, Mike Moberg runs a strong CE5 group in Florida. During Aliens Revealed Live's online summit, he spoke about the need for experiencers to relate their stories in a safe environment. There was a perception for a long time that alien close contact experiences were in the minority. The emergence of the CE5 movement has put that notion to bed. Mike Moberg conducts monthly meetups at his ranch in Florida. He says he has a core group of around 155 members, and the numbers just continue to grow. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind experiencers can stay quiet about their CE5 contact for all of their lives. In fact, before the internet came into play, those who were brave enough to risk ridicule were few in numbers. Fast forward to 2021, and it seems it's a completely different scenario with the protocols now in place. They are providing a safe haven to introduce experiencers who want to talk about their contact. If you're listening to this today as a CE5 experiencer who is ready to take the next step and join a like-minded group, Moberg says the best avenue is to go through Costa Macris and Hollis Polk at etletstalk.com. Moberg says this will give you a fast start into understanding what the groups do. Mike Moberg is joining us now. Hi, Mike.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here, and it's an honor to be asked to talk about this, so thank you.
Well, I thought today we'd look at this chat as more of an education for folks, because I get the feeling that a lot of people interested in the topic of UFOs probably aren't all that aware of the work that you and others do in the CE5 area. So let's start off by firstly explaining what CE5 stands for.
Yeah, CE5 is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It's a human-initiated contact experience. It's which is known as HICE today. There are those of us who, have stopped using terms like UFO and have started using terms like unidentified aerial phenomenon. More friendly terms instead of aliens. We use extraterrestrials and non-human intelligence or non-human intelligent beings because language is important. And if language can, cut very sharply in places where it has to be very carefully used or not used at all, which brings us into the contact experience. It's a non-linguistically based, spiritually based contact experience where we meditate and get into a heightened spiritual state, which doesn't take very hard work. Is actually very easy to achieve. If everybody knew how easy this was, we could remove so much of the mystery from it, which is what I try to do. I kind of try to democratize CE5 and the human-initiated contact experience.
So when did all of this begin for you? How did you get interested in this?
Well, I've had almost a lifelong contact. My history of contact is written about in Beyond UFOs, which was produced by FREE, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters and Extraordinary Experiences. I think it's chapter 10, as I recall. But things started for me early on in childhood, very early childhood, and I maintained contact for quite a long time. In 1979, I had a major contact experience with 50 other people up in the Berkshires, and I kind of, back then there wasn't an internet, and you didn't talk about those kind of things, and in 2015, October 3rd, 2015 to be exact, I had been translating some works and digesting some works by Niwa Ching, who is a Taoist master, and I had a very large orb appear outside my high-rise in Tampa, Florida. And we had a download experience, and I was lucky enough to ask it to stop so I could take some photographs of it, which it did, and have 3 very beautiful and iconic photographs. I basically said, look, nobody's going to believe this unless I can get photographs of this, and it told me okay. And I kind of asked it to do some things, and it did, and that got me flying. I had no desire to make contact, but because I was in a what I would call a heightened spiritual state after hours of working on these works, just like Stephen Greer. I didn't even know of him at the time, but Greer's first experience was after having meditated. A ET, UFO, UAP appeared to him, and it was a very similar experience. And after studying for years on this and lecturing at the UFO MegaCon last year, I also came across the Lotus Sutra, chapter 23, in which, lo and behold, the Buddha meditates, and he brings in a UFO, which at the time that I read it as an undergraduate at Princeton in 1976, I took it as allegory and myth, and now I take it as a reality. You meditate, and you can bring these spiritual beings, these universal beings, as I like to call them, into your midst, and they're friendly, and they will communicate, and they communicate in many, many different ways. So that's what I do.
Okay. So you mentioned orb, and then you mentioned download. So the orb is the spiritual being, but what's the download?
Well, so many people talk about it, and I hadn't had it before October 3rd, but the download is it's almost a trance-like state, but you're very, very conscious when it's going on, and you receive a large amount of information. And if somebody asks me specifically, what was that information, I've been busy writing for 4 years about it, and it will come out in the books that I've been writing. I finished one, and I'm working on another one right now. But essentially what happened was, in a very shortened version of it, was the information that I got completely obliterated my whole concept of a world of duality, and I experienced what is known as universal consciousness. And that universal consciousness has been an ever-present part of my life to one degree or another for the last, since 2015. So, and that kind of universal consciousness, the consciousness that you get by studying Tao, by studying some of the other masters as well, like Niwa Ching or Master Ni, and you can get it. It's very, very simple. What you try and do is remove the differences between you and your environment and people, and stop thinking so much and start meditating, and then you're in a state where you can make contact. These entities don't like making contact with human beings that are dangerous, that are not at peace with themselves, that have conflict. And that's one of the reasons why I developed my own protocol that, thanks to some of my other classmates at Princeton who also do this kind of thing, Hollis Polk for one, and Nancy Dutetra for another, we've come up, or with what's known as the Princeton Protocol, which is a forgiveness and gratitude-based protocol that I use here at the ranch to teach and bring people in contact with not only their spiritual selves and resolve their internal problems, but also come into magnificent contact with quite a number of entities here in various shapes and forms.
So the entities that you come in contact with, are they all one race, or is there a variety of different races?
Oh my goodness, there's you can't there's such a multitude of potentiality out there. We've had small orbs kind of walking across the field here during our states of meditation. We've had vast numbers of I would call them ships show up. I've actually had a visitor in the house one morning. So it's impossible to say how many different kinds there are out there, but the common denominator is a universal consciousness and desire for love and peace, and the connection that comes with that. So once you understand that, then you can start making contact.
Okay. I was watching a presentation from Stephen Greer not that long ago, and there was one night they were out in the desert, and they actually got an image of one of these entities, and they captured it on film, and it was quite fascinating.
Well, let me interrupt you here. This isn't so much about proving that they exist. I mean, those who practice with me, and I have a wonderful core group out here, and we teach a lot of people that come in. I've got over 150 members in the group, and I have probably 25 to 35 regular practitioners out here. The important thing is to remember that this is a spiritual exercise that brings you in contact with a multiplicity of non-human intelligences and beings, and they manifest in many numbers of forms. So, getting a photograph of one, that's all great, but you have to accept as a proposition that this is real. Unlike, I'm writing right now on the works of Carl Gustav Jung, Flying Saucers, a modern myth, and on his synchronicity. And you have to accept, unlike Jung, you have to accept that this is a real phenomenon involving real beings of a spiritual nature that are super highly intelligent. So it's great that he got a photograph of it. We have some wonderful photographs here, and if you want to see some of the photographs of things that have happened at the ranch, Ken Glanister, Glanister, has a YouTube channel. I used to not let people photograph out here, but Ken is a member of my core group, and he's been photographing. And go to YouTube and look at his stuff, especially the November CE5 here at Darby Ranch. It's phenomenal. It's mind-boggling, and it's only a fraction of what we saw and what happened out here. I've seen motherships, I've seen cloak ships. If you avail yourself to the phenomenon and keep an open mind and an open heart, you are going to see things that you never thought you could possibly even think of. And it's all a positive experience. I have, out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of contact experiences that I've had, none of them have been negative. So contrary to some popular belief, these entities that we come in contact with in this heightened state of prayer or spirituality, and it's true spirituality, it's not something that can be faked. It's beyond your wildest dreams, and it's a spiritual elevation. You make contact, and you continue to refine your spirit, your soul, and every time you make contact, you reach a higher level of understanding of humanity, acceptance of other beings, and the differences between people, so that you don't see race. Religion becomes unnecessary, and what you do see is a common bond between terrestrials and extraterrestrials, which is what we're establishing here, both as a movement and as a way of life.
Because I do hear some pushback from religious groups, the fact that they're worried that what you're inviting in may be malevolent.
Well, religious groups are, they're kind of like cattle herders. They just keep on wanting to add more cattle to the herd. The whole, if you read the study that Free did on this, 85% of even the abductees after time saw their experience as a positive one. And, if I go into surgery knowing that I've got an 85% chance of having a successful operation when my life is in jeopardy and a 15% chance of failure, I'm going with the 85% every time. If you love, you do not fear. And one of the things that the Tao teaches, that Lao Tzu teaches through the Tao Te Ching, is what you do lose is your fear of death. And once you lose your fear of death, you start understanding you are, in fact, an infinite intelligence, an infinite being that's going to be around forever. And the goal is to return to source. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, you hear that a lot from near-death experiences who come back and see what they actually are, and then death no longer becomes an issue for them. Right, absolutely. And I've had one or two of those myself. So many years ago. So I understand this phenomenon from any number of approaches, and it's all the same phenomenon. There's all the same. It all deals with what I would call the collective consciousness, and underlying intelligence that orchestrates these things. And I can talk a little bit later about synchronicity and what it is, and how it evolves into causality and a recognition of an ultimate intelligence that underlies us all and orchestrates this all for the benefit of us all. Okay. Now, is this something that folks need to join a group like yours to be able to experience, or can they research it themselves and do it themselves?
Yeah, I started this, my first contact after the October 3rd, 2015, I contacted Hollis Polk, who I didn't know, and she has become a close friend of mine. She was a colleague at Princeton in the 70s. Didn't know her then, but because she and Costa Macraeus, her husband, have been doing this for quite some time, I learned how to do CE5, and what I found was I did it on my own, and I did it out with them in Shasta. I had some remarkable experiences, and what I found coming back was people would start contacting me because I made it rather public. I'm an attorney. I'm still a practicing attorney. I do disability law. You can find me at disabilityattorney.net for whatever reason. You can also contact me directly at Darby Ranch CE5@gmail.com, and I'll send you my protocol for free. But I found that there were people that had been contactees and contactees like myself, that had nobody to talk to. At first, I looked for psychological people that I could talk to about this. There were none. I found out that John Mack had died. And surprisingly enough, one of his patients and one of his students is a member of my group. And then I realized there was a need for people who have been abducted or contacted and have these experiences to talk to somebody, so that in a safe environment, so they're not looked at as some kind of freaks or unreal. And there's so many out there. I mean, people would come and talk to me, and I would listen objectively and caringly, and they would break down in tears because I'd been the first person in their lives of 60 years that actually listened and understood what they had gone through and saw. And the stories out there are there are so many people that are contactees out there, it would surprise you. But they were able to talk to me, and then I realized I needed to start a group. And then instead of doing this on my own and with one other partner practitioner, I began a group out here at Darby in 2017 in February. And our first night, we had immediate contact with a ship that showed up right overhead, and it was just a phenomenal experience. There was another physical download that happened at the time. Rose B, I'm not at liberty to give her last name, but we did talk about the experience on a podcast a couple of years ago. But we made direct connection in 2 consecutive nights out here, and we have had just a wonderful experience teaching and making contact out here for 2.5 years now on a monthly basis.
Now, experiences, and you mentioned there's a lot of them out there that have kept quiet over the years for fear of ridicule, and I guess the fact that they just need someone to talk to, but don't need to go public with it. What I wanted to ask, those people that have had experiences with malevolent aliens. Are we talking about the same type of aliens, the ones that perform the physical abductions, and not the ones that you deal with through CE5?
I don't think so, because I'm almost sure we're not. Number one, CE5 is a human-initiated contact experience, and abduction is a CE3, CE4. It's non-consensual. So whatever's going on and whoever's doing that is not part of what we do as CE5. I have never heard of a CE5 group bringing in a malevolent spirit or a malevolent entity or physical being. Never heard of it, ever.
Okay, so say someone wants to get in touch with you. How do they do it? And then what's the process?
Well, they can contact me at darbyranchce5@gmail.com, and I'll send them the protocol. They can also go to etletstalk.com. That's Costa and Hollis's group. They've got over 25,000 members worldwide. And it's best to register with them because Costa can put people in touch in their state or in their area or region. I mean, he's created groups everywhere in the world, from Israel to you name it. They're all part of this. But that's where I would go first, and then you can get directed to somebody in your area that has a CE5 group going. There are also other seminars that are held. Costa and Hollis put a wonderful 1-week seminar in. It only costs about $400 or $500. Well worth the money, and the learning and experience you're going to get from it really is second to none. So that's where I would start. And then if you don't have people that are around, start doing it on your own. Or find 1 or 2 people that you love and trust and who are interested in doing this. And it's a wonderful place to start. You meet some wonderful people. You will not meet any more kind, friendly, or more spiritually refined human beings than whom you will meet doing CE5.
Can you just give us an example on how you would start the process and the type of thing you need to do to get this up and running?
Sure. Organizing a group. What I did was I went on to, there's a Meetup app you can download, and you can create your own group, which is what I did 2.5 years ago. There were 2 of us, and like I said, there was 155 as of this morning in the group. And, just put it out there. CE5, Dr. Greer had put together a Ambassadors of the Universe group, which I don't like the word ambassadors, but, you can join one of his Ambassadors to the Universe associated groups through Meetup. That's an automatic program that comes up on Meetup. You can do that. You can name it whatever you want to call it. And you can use the protocol that I have. And the protocols are really very simple. And how to do this is really kind of very simple. We get together for generally my typical weekend, my monthly weekend with the group, separate and apart from the people that have become my core group, who are real antennas. It's kind of like once you make contact, you bring your I don't want to say book of business, but you bring your book of friends with you, and there's a way to get in contact with these entities and continue to bring them back. But we gather, we have dinner together, we relax, we get to know each other, we get to meet the new people in the group. I try to pair up the new people in the group with the more experienced members so they can learn. We have a convocation in the house, which basically sets the tone. And the convocation can be anything. There's one in my protocol that that you can fall back on and use as a backup. But I begin the convocation with any number of things, and then we go out to the field where there's what I call it the invocation, where we hold hands and we do a standing meditation, and then we circulate the energy from left to right through the group and focus it on the center. I have my friends call it a redneck obelisk. It's a 4x4 that's painted white that's in the middle of the circle that we focus our attention on, and then we CTS, we sequence on up and bring our thoughts and our intention and our love and mutual compassion, and we project it, and we ask for contact from any beings who understand and see that we're there. And then we go back, and then we will go into, I lie on the ground. Other people use gravity chairs. And then we just go into a meditative state, nice and simple. This past month, I played a meditation from Eckhart Tolle, which everybody loved and enjoyed. And then we had quite a number of contact experiences after it. So it's just a matter of projecting that love and intention and relaxing and inviting them down and loving each other. And we also have some comedians in the group too, and it's funny how the ET manages to show when we're just doing nothing except joking around and in a completely relaxed state. So I also think that comedy is a higher form of consciousness, and for whatever reason, ET appreciates it.
And I believe you're a comedian as well.
Yeah, I was a catastrophic stand-up. I learned to do it only because that was one of my fears, is being up in front of crowds and having to be funny or humorous. But just like it was synchronicity. It brought me in contact with the man who taught me, who was also a contactee. And that man, who has since died, essentially, I inherited his best friend, which is Lou Angel, a professional comedian, and we do a radio show together that's based on CE5 and human-initiated contact experiences, and all the things that kind of pour in and lead into it.
What kind of information do you exchange with the entities? Is it all is it personal to the person, to each individual, or is it information portrayed out to the group?
Well, it's not so much. The download was a very, very special experience. But what you do end up doing, people ask me, how do I know what I just saw was an ET? And I said, well, the first question I ask is, did your heart jump out to meet it? And if they say yes, then it's like, yeah, that was it. And, that might be the fact that, you're in contact with some kind of gravitational waves. That's a theory. But what I like to believe is that this loving state that you're in attracts entities that are also capable of entering that loving state. And really, you do get, those who engage in CE5 a lot will tell you the same thing, that unless you feel your heart jump towards what you're seeing, then disregard it, because it may be something other than a non-human intelligence.
Okay. Just want to talk about disclosure for a brief moment. Do you think the ETs are actually waiting for humankind to actually wake up?
Who knows what they're waiting for, but those.
I mean to get on that level you were talking about, rather than being. Basically, we're a warlike creature.
Well, yeah, we can be. Jung would tell us that, we have to, that's the dark side, and that we have to resolve this dark side. One of the things that Jordan Peterson talks about is, if you can't conceptualize yourself as a guard at Auschwitz, then you don't understand the nature of a human being. And we're given free will to overcome these the shadow part of our human experience. And that's exactly what we're doing with CE5, is you're overcoming the shadow. And that's why I think that ET makes contact with people who are able to do that. And as far as disclosure goes, we don't need disclosure who've already made contact. We know it's a reality, and we're there upping our spiritual game every time we go out into the field and share love and compassion and meditate and make contact. Disclosure is for people that just don't understand that the nature of reality is not just physical. It's there's so many different there's so many different dimensions. There's so many different densities, and people who want to stay in the physical world, they are the ones that have the problems with understanding the nature of contact.
Okay, so on the scale, on the evolution scale, where do you think we are as humans compared to the ETs and their development of evolution? Say on a scale of 1 to 5, are we even a blip on that scale? Have we even registered?
Yeah, well, because we are intelligent life and we all matter. I mean, that's what has to happen with humanity. We have to realize that we all matter. And when we start seeing ourselves in others, or seeing others as self, that's when we start entering unity consciousness. And that's what ET does for us. It sees us as themselves. So there is no difference. So, even though our ability, our cognizant ability, or our IQs may be comparatively low, supposedly, to those entities that we're in contact with. I mean, these entities have had billions of years of evolution beyond us, billions of years. And, the fact that they contact us is proof that there is a loving creator who loves us and is willing to have what I would call physically, mentally, and spiritually superior beings contact us for the purpose of educating us and bringing us out of this horrible animalistic milieu that we've suffered from for many thousands of years.
So what do you think we can do to awaken people to the reality of ETs and NHIBs?
Is to, number one, calm down, realize you don't have all the answers, learn how to meditate. And then once you've learned how to meditate and what it's all about, then start reaching out for contact, whether it's directly to ET and following one of the protocols, one of the very simple protocols, or joining a group and doing it. If you have the fear, joining a group is a good thing, because when they appear, you have other people that are there that see the exact same things. And it's like, no, that wasn't just an illusion. I did see that, right? And I was like, yeah, I saw it too. And that's really important, to have somebody to bear witness to this experience you're going through. So that's why the groups are important.
And you're clear now on your role in all of this going forward?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, Mike, been a real pleasure talking with you. It's a fascinating subject, and let's hope that we get a lot of feedback out of this from folks, and they learn more about the CE5 experience. And just before we go, I believe you've got your own radio show. Is there somewhere people can go to get more information and hear you directly?
Yeah, what they can do is we're on tantalk.com, 1340 AM FM. We also log our shows in at imho.love on YouTube, so you can go through all the back shows and listen to the kinds of things we talk about. So that's probably the easiest way to find us. Like us, subscribe if you wish, if it tickles your fancy, and just realize that eventually this movement is something that is going to overcome all the negativity that we have in the planet, and we're on the verge of entering something that it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to humanity. And I'm pleased to be here with you and with the people that I'm associated with, and we have a ringside seat to to something that's really fantastic.
Yep, I heard a radio talk show host say recently, it's like we're on the verge of a new awakening.
Oh yes, yeah, it is. That's what it's all about. Is the spiritual awakening, and the unity consciousness and the reality of oneness. And I could go for hours on it, but we only have a little bit of time, and I'm just honored that you've asked me to speak, and I am thrilled that you can disseminate this information and get it out there, because people are suffering, and this is a means to alleviate suffering. So you're doing a wonderful thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for being on the program.
All right. Love and peace.
Back at you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
That's one of the world's leading CE5 researchers, Mike Merberg. Well, how did James Forrestal really die, and was his death part of an alien conspiracy? There are so many unanswered questions surrounding the latter stages of James Forrestal's life. Peter Robbins has spent several decades studying the life of James Forrestal and has left no stone unturned in trying to discover the truth. So would a jury find his death as murder or suicide if all the evidence was presented in today's court system? If all the evidence that you've gathered over the years was presented in today's court system, do you think a jury would come up with a verdict of suicide or murder?
I'm quite convinced, although one could say I'm not objective. I think I'm ultra objective, or I would not have chosen to present this case, that they would most certainly decide it was a case of murder. Okay.
It's also, I guess he was a de facto key player in the formulation of the UFO policy. So is there a connection between UFOs and his death?
Yes. I say this from the point of view of somebody who's not a mental health professional, but with some pride, that for 8 years, with several very necessary breaks, I worked as a volunteer and then a volunteer and a shift supervisor at the busiest suicide hotline in America, the offices of a brilliantly important British-based organization called Samaritans International, where people like me were not trained to be, fake psychologists. We were trained, though, to be available to people who were depressed, mentally ill, suicidal, lonely. And in that time, I interfaced with quite a number of psychologists and psychiatrists in my private life and in that part of my life who had come to specialize in suicide. The circumstances surrounding the alleged suicide are patently absurd. And what I heard from every person I presented the case to was that in their experience, jumpers jump, and people who want to hang themselves, hang themselves. They don't try to hang themselves out of a window of a 16th floor building. In any case where somebody is so terribly in despair that they are considering ending their life, those of us who have been fortunate enough not to be standing on that actual or allegorical ledge sometimes come to think that their mind is clouded and full of confusion, where that may be the case in some instances. Also, that it's often not one reason, it's a complexity of reasons. And I think that was the case with Mr. Forrestal. It was not just one reason. However, I have come to believe incontrovertibly that a major consulting reason was the tremendous sense of personal failure that he had, and the understanding that in the minds of very powerful individuals in Washington, by having a nervous breakdown, and a very public one at that, that he could not only no longer be trusted, but that he knew where all the bodies were buried, if you know what I mean. He knew all the secrets and what happened if he recovered and then had a relapse. I think James Forrestal not only understood this, but it was so clear to him that in his mind, as a patriotic American who had done his best and failed miserably in his estimate, that he knew he had to die. And the two instances of suicide that sadly I was able to fully document leading up to his institutionalization was him acting like a good Roman soldier and trying to throw himself on his sword, but literally stopped by individuals around him who cared.
Yep.
When he began to truly recover and regain his will to live, he signed his own death warrant. And as I make note of in the documentary, it's particularly poignant to realize that the individuals, and it would have had to have been more than one individual, who was able to get into that secured area of the hospital, obviously with the right credentials, name tags, white coats, whatever it entailed, that they may well have had admiration. Hold it. We'll take that back. Hello? Okay, on a radio interview, though. I think it's fair to say that the individuals who would have had to have been very highly placed, who forced him out that 16th floor window, may well have had great respect and admiration for him. But as they say in the mob, it's nothing personal. It's just focus. He had to go. Let's also remember here that now in current day America, and I feel around what we refer to as the first world, every single one of us either has been or knows somebody, be it a family member, a friend, a business associate, a neighbor, who has seen a therapist or a psychiatrist or a counselor or a psychologist at one time or another, or their kids have. Going back to 1949, this was not only not the case, but probably 99 out of 100 Americans had never known anybody who had put themselves into this kind of position. As Archie Bunker used to say, you got to be crazy to see a psychiatrist. It was simply not done. And as you study Forrestal's life, he really emerges as kind of an ultimate alpha male.
Yep.
He was not just somebody who kept in shape. He was a very competitive tennis player, a professional level golfer. He was a passionate amateur boxer, even into his serious career. It was a sport that he loved very much. He was charismatic. He was tough. When he was in university, he had his nose broken in an amateur boxing match, and he decided not to have it reset because he thought it would make him look tougher in life, and you see photos of him. However, he was also a very sensitive soul. He studied the classics at Princeton. One of the major accounts that emerges surrounding the evening of his death was when looked in by an attendant. He was copying a Sophocles poem out of an anthology onto hospital stationery. And all of these factors count in the tragedy that emerged.
That's Peter Robbins, whose response is quite decisive and not surprising when asked what his research reveals and how James Forrestal really died. This is an interview you don't want to miss. It's on the next episode of the Aliens Revealed Live Files. And thanks for being with us once again. Don't forget to check out our site at arlhub.com, arlhub.com. And as always, keep looking upwards and take care.